My name is Diana. I'm 23 years old, and I just graduated from college. My dream is to be a journalist. I recently lost my dad, Howard. He always made me feel like he cared about me, even when we were far. Now that he's gone, the house feels empty, but I'm not going to give up. I want to celebrate graduation and accomplish my goals. My mom, Caroline, and sister, Gloria, want to sell our house, but I believe we can find a way out. I will not let our family fall apart because of this news. Dad's death has everyone thinking about money, but I won't let greed take over. Gloria may mock and doubt me, but I told her, "I'm as good as you, Gloria." When the doorbell rang, I interrupted my thoughts and wiped away my tears. A stranger in a dark suit stood in front of me. I let him in, knowing I could handle whatever he had to say. He gave me his condolences and politely asked me to come in. Our memories of sad words faded, and I felt determined. Sitting at the table, I was ready for whatever was to come. It was not easy to cope. Fatigue reigned in my thoughts when suddenly the doorbell broke the silence, a sound that usually heralded trouble. Opening the door, I saw a man from Dad's past. He said he had come to discuss Dad's business. I felt like a stranger, always taking care of him, but not fitting into his life. His serious tone sounded foreign in our cluttered living room. It was a reminder that our family was unhappy. I nodded and showed him where Carolyn and Gloria peered out of the kitchen, eyeing him with curiosity and irritation. The man pulled some papers from his briefcase, his face impenetrable. He introduced himself as Mr. Roberts, Papa's lawyer. He began to say, adjusting his glasses, that Dad had left me a will and final instructions. He was ready to break the news that could change everything. Caroline leaned toward me, intrigued, and Gloria tried to remain indifferent, but stayed close by. Mr. Roberts was getting ready to speak, and I was prepared for the worst. I didn't know what was in store for us, but I was sure it would change our family. Mr. Roberts coughed and unfolded the document with my father's last will. Carolyn and Gloria, barely containing their impatience, sat on the edge of their chairs. We prepared to listen to what Father had asked us to do. Mr. Roberts began by explaining to us that he had come to read the will and carry out Father's last will. He looked at each of us carefully, as if assessing if we were ready to hear what he had to say. Growing up in the shadow of our mother and sister, we were used to not counting on much and preparing for the worst. But as the lawyer began to read, it became clear that our fears were in vain. I bequeath all my property, including the family home and all savings and investments, to my daughter Diana. He read aloud. There was silence in the room, interrupted only by the rustle of papers and the quiet ticking of the antique clock. I barely heard his words, my heart pounding loudly and my ears ringing. It felt like a mistake. I began to stutter, my voice sounding unfamiliar. Gloria stood up, shock and anger in her eyes, and the chair fell to the floor with a clatter. Caroline sat still, shocked, opening and closing her. I walked over to calm or hold Gloria down. This has to be a joke, I thought, but Mr. Roberts only shook his head. He confirmed that there was no mistake and Father was clear in his orders. He felt that I would best preserve his legacy and manage the estate responsibly. Caroline, I understand your feelings and sympathize with your loss, he said. You must have many questions. What will happen to Mom and Gloria? Will they be left without everything while I get everything? That question hung in the air, and I felt the weight of responsibility on my shoulders, but I was grateful for the support in such a difficult situation. It was a difficult decision to make, but I knew I had to act in the best interest of everyone. Mr. Roberts met my gaze, and I felt his support. My father must have had his reasons for making such a will, and I hoped it would become clearer in time. I wondered what he saw in me, what role he intended for me in his will, and how I would live up to his trust amidst the strife in our family. The silence that fell after Mr. Roberts' words was almost as depressing as the sadness at my father's funeral. Carolyn and Gloria were outraged, their emotions colliding with my shock like waves against a rock. We all froze, unable to find words. Everyone's thoughts were preoccupied with the implications of the will. Mr. Roberts interrupted the silence by addressing me. "I have a personal letter from your father, Diane." This was unexpected. He asked me to give it to you after the reading of the will. Gloria said something, her voice bringing me out of my stupor, but I was too dazed to understand her words. They echoed in the room, but I didn't want to get into a conflict. It seemed unbelievable that it was all down to me alone. Mr. Roberts put his hand on Gloria's shoulder, trying to reassure her, but his gesture couldn't contain her seething emotions. "What, then? Are we nothing to him? After all we've done for him, he just rejected," she exclaimed, as if she were using every word as a weapon, her voice reaching a peak of disbelief and pain. "Carolyn, I'm sorry you're so upset," Mr. Roberts said. "It may seem like there should be some defenses, opportunities to challenge in a situation like this. Please rest assured, we are here to help and will try to find a solution that works for you." I felt stunned, and my heart was full of doubt. My voice sounded weak as I tried to express my bewilderment at my father's decision. Thoughts swirled in my head, a multitude of unanswered questions, pointing to a man I may have never truly known. Mr. Roberts took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose before continuing. "Howard had his reasons," he said, "and he wanted you to know them in his own words." He then turned to Caroline and Gloria with an offer to contest the will if they saw fit. Howard's instructions were clear and carefully documented. The room was in chaos, Caroline and Gloria's voices colliding in a whirlwind of emotions, each trying to come up with a plan of action. I hoped I could listen and understand them. My thoughts returned to the unopened letter from my father that lay on the table. It was calling to me, and I finally made up my mind. Taking a deep breath, I picked it up. As I unfolded the folds, I felt the lightness of the paper, which at the same time felt incredibly heavy, full of unknown content that might explain a lot. As I prepared to read my father's letter, I felt that his words were his way of communicating with me after his death. The inheritance in my hands felt like a burden, heavy and poisonous, not a blessing. In the solitude of my room, with the door locked, I began to read, my hands trembling with every movement. Father's letter could be a comfort. His handwriting had always felt so familiar and close to me. He apologized for the burden he had placed on me, saying that no parent should have to do this. His words cut through the legal terms and formalities we had encountered earlier. They were filled with sincerity and deep feeling. He wrote about his love for me, how proud he was of my strength, discipline, and drive to do better. He saw in me honesty and integrity, which he said were rare and admirable qualities. As I read these lines, he admitted that he had seen all the injustices in our home, and that my patience and hard work caused him both pain and pride. By giving me everything he had, he was trying to right the wrongs I had endured due to neglect from my mother and sister. This letter opened a new perspective on his decision and how he saw me and our family. Every word in my father's letter was filled with unspoken observations and the quiet support he had given me over the years. He always saw more than he showed, and now his words let me know that he saw and appreciated my efforts. I hope this inheritance will give you the freedom and means to realize your aspirations. The letter read, "Don't feel obligated to fix a past that was broken long before you." Folding the letter, I clutched it to my chest, The love of a father who recognized my quiet sacrifices left an indelible mark on my soul. Determination mingled with the grief that now accompanied me, and I realized that I would have to face the storm that my divided family had scattered. When I returned to the room with Mr. Roberts, Carolyn, and Gloria, I knew it was time to discuss how we would move forward. "It's time to talk about the future," I began, trying to keep a calm tone. Carolina snorted skeptically, and Gloria nodded decisively, as if confirming her intention to fight. "We're going to contest this will," I stated, hoping we could find a common solution. Mr. Roberts had warned that litigation could be long and expensive, and the outcome was unknown. Nevertheless, my father's will was clear, and he had every right to dispose of his estate as he saw fit. My father's words were like a burning torch, lighting my way. I was facing a family that had never been a real family, and though it wasn't my decision, I was determined to fulfill my father's last wish. Now I had to find a way to do so while maintaining peace in the family and honoring my father's memory. Under the pressure of circumstance and family obligations, your determination to remain true to your father's will deserves respect. The tension that has enveloped your home is inevitable in these situations, but your confidence in following your father's last will can be the foundation for future actions. When a family becomes a battlefield where each day brings new arguments and silence filled with anticipation, it's a test for everyone. Caroline and Gloria, seeking advice from lawyers and forums, act out of their beliefs and feelings of injustice. However, as Mr. Roberts emphasizes, the legal side of the issue seems unyielding and the will is unbreakable. Your sense of guilt at being the sole heir is natural in such circumstances. The responsibility you feel toward your mother and sister speaks to your compassion and kindness. But it is important to remember that your father apparently entrusted you with this inheritance for a reason. He saw in you the ability to carry this burden and use it to create a better future, perhaps even for the family as a whole. Dealing with finances and property that you previously knew little about can be difficult, but your willingness to honor your father's memory and build on the trust he gave you can be a support that can help you and your family find a path to reconcile. It may be worthwhile to see a professional family counselor or mediator to help establish a dialogue between you and your loved ones. This can be a way to restore family bonds and find a compromise that allows everyone to feel heard and respected. Your desire to mend what has been broken may lead you to find a fair and wise solution for all. You're thinking about the future beyond current family difficulties, and financial statements shows your desire for personal growth and your desire to use your inheritance for good causes. You try to look beyond the horizon of current problems and envision how you can apply the resources you have gained to create positive change. Unfortunately, conflicts with Caroline and Gloria, which cause their worst traits to come out. The emotional tensions you describe often arise in families when inheritances are divided, especially when old grudges and secrets come into play. Your decision to step in and offer a fresh start, even if it doesn't include a material inheritance, speaks to your desire to restore peace and harmony in the family. Offering to help Carolyn and Gloria get a fresh start is an indication of your generosity and understanding that money and possessions cannot always solve deep personal and emotional problems. Carolyn's reaction, though seemingly mocking and cynical, may be a defensive reaction to the proposed changes and uncertainty of the future. At times like these, it's important to keep your composure and continue to seek reconciliation while staying true to your values and beliefs. You may want to consider meeting with the whole family in the presence of a mediator who can help move the conversation in a more constructive direction. This approach can help identify the underlying issues and work to resolve them. giving everyone involved the opportunity to express their feelings and desires in a safe and controlled environment. Your words and determination reflect a deep understanding that there are times in life when one must move forward despite opposition and misunderstanding from others. Years of hostility can truly toughen a person, and you have used that toughness to uphold your beliefs and make decisions that you believe are right. Carolyn and Gloria's silence and reluctant nods may be a sign of their acceptance of their circumstances. Although this acceptance seems fragile, it may not be a complete reconciliation, but at least some acknowledgement of your decision to move forward. Returning to your room and the memories that letters from your father bring are a reminder that lies ahead is not only the management of an inheritance, but also a personal journey of self-determination. The inheritance process, meetings with Mr. Roberts, and all that comes with it become part of your new routine, turning days into weeks. When Carolyn and Gloria start looking for a new place to live, it probably relieves some of the tension in the house. Winter is coming, and although the air remains cool, the environment seems less stressful. The house becomes empty, with every box packed and furniture removed, which in a way symbolizes the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter in your father's study becomes a place of solitude and reflection for you, filled with memories of a time when family conflicts had not yet marred your life. And then the day comes when Caroline and Gloria leave, perhaps not with a full reconciliation, but at least some resolution to the situation. The sign check is a symbol of your desire to help them start over, even if they can't share the inheritance with you. Now that you are alone in the house, new horizons are open before you. You can use your inheritance and your resources to fulfill your aspirations and perhaps build a new future, not only for yourself, but also for those in your. This is your chance to create something meaningful and lasting that will reflect your values and dreams. As soon as their car disappeared around the corner, I was left standing at the threshold, gripped by a mixture of relief and sadness. Their departure marked the end of an era, but at the same time I was determined to use our future together for good. With Mr. Roberts' encouragement, I established a charitable foundation in my father's honor to provide educational opportunities for disadvantaged youth. At one time, as a student, I felt that my ambitions had no place within the walls of a home that did not share my aspirations. Nevertheless, I continued my journey in the world of journalism by enrolling in a master's program, with a chance at an internship at a prestigious newsroom. Thanks to hereditary connections and resources left by my father, my life has been filled with a search for truth. In the past, I shared these moments with my father during our long phone conversations that now seem like a distant memory. Today, I am constantly on the move, but the principles laid down by my father are always with me. The house that once seemed like a dungeon to me has become a place of comfort. I transformed it by repainting the walls, rearranging the furniture, and getting a dog. The dog's cheerful energy has filled the house, transforming it from a place of quarrels to a space for friendship, work, and laughter. Sometimes I linger in my father's study, looking through his old letters and faded book pages. My father's signature at the bottom of each letter has always caught my attention. His last message had an indelible impact on my life. He taught that duty and love are the greatest powers we possess and should. Surrounded by the legacy of my father's words and wisdom, I made a vow to myself to live by these principles.